I said I am muted. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all well. Always like starting the show with some excitement, like me. I'm not unmuting myself. Just keeps the thing alive, gives it a certain hook, an extra punch, so on and so forth. I hope everyone is well. We are here for another edition of Fleet Week. We are an hour later than usual, which is a running theme of the show that is not on the time it is scheduled to be on Twitch. But as a wise man once said, you get what you get, I suppose. Let me quickly handle some business here. Let me get set up and ready to go in the land of the Twitch. We have much to discuss today. We have a loaded week for the All Elite fleet. Free television outings, free C shows, 6 days of shows, which in fact would mean that since I last did Fleet Week, they have had a show on every single day. We live in the content era, folks, is what I'm saying. But nonetheless, there is a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Let me tweet a couple links, and we'll get rocking here. I got my notes prepared. I see some grinners in the chat. Good evening, all. Hope I can distract you from what I'm told has been, and I quote, a day over there on the Bird app. I have many of my friends just tweet about the discourse, which is always encouraging when I don't necessarily know what it's about. I see a lot of Mance Warner discussion, which, that's unfortunate. Saw it come from a mile away. Of course, that's be a thing. So, much to get into. None of that being it. We're going to talk about the wrestling, which is when these shows are closest to being good. Vaguely familiar with the word good. You will see that Jeff Jarrett is now looming over my shoulder. Shout out to Jay Shell for that gift. At some point, we need to get on here and Jay Shell can open her gifts. They got there the day late, which fucking owned. But anyway, let's handle some business. Here we go. Fleet Week it is. Let's start with the A show. AEW Dynamite, a show that didn't have much hype going in, it must be said. Not the strongest lineup on paper, but it was a lineup that I think if you looked beyond the surface, you could pretty clearly see that actually there was a lot to like about this show. There was some very, very nice pieces, just not the kind that make the overall feel like an electric, kind of must-see episode of TV. In reality, I actually thought it was a damn good show. I thought it was paced really well. I thought it flowed together. I don't think there was one thing on the show that I would deem to be bad. I think most of it was actually quite good. A couple of things were very good. So a very steady, strong, in fact, episode of AEW Dynamite. I liked it very, very much. And honestly, a lot more than I expected to. With that in mind, let's get into some of the pieces at play. Okay. Highlight of the show, in my view, when it comes to Dynamite, was the tag match. Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter up against Thunderstorm. This one didn't jump off the page to me because I didn't really put much thought into what this was in terms of like what they actually had at their disposal here. And what I mean by that is, here you have 4 women who, if nothing else, have been on the TV show a lot in some form or fashion. Some of them mostly in the background, but they've been on the show, which is more than you can say for a lot of the women, unfortunately. In addition, you have some good talent in there. I'm not going to get into who is whom and who ranks on which person's big board, but they're all, to differing levels. Good talent. The lesser piece of it in terms of an in-ring perspective is the biggest star and he's over in a big way. So there's a crowd investment there. So overall, you have a really nice mix of personalities and presences and skill sets. And there's also some history. A lot of these women have matched up previously and had fun matches with each other. So there was a lot going for this. And honestly, I missed the boat not kind of circling it, as one that could be a big one for the division. I'm going to say it. I know everyone gets mad. I know it's like a whole topic now, which is unfortunate. I do think it helps to be in the first hour. I just think it does. Objectively, the crowd's fresh. So that's just my personal read on it. You may disagree. That's fine. I think it clearly helps. I would like to see more of this. But yeah, I always was a really, really strong outing. It would have been my AEW match of the week, if not for the final match of the week, which we'll get to in about an hour probably. But it really was strong, very, very strong. Now, I will say, I would like to give a shout out to the pairing of Jamie and Britt, because this has quietly been something they've actually got some good TV out of in the last few months. It's been a while. It was June and May when they did these two matches, but you may recall we had these tag matches with Britt and Jamie up against Tony and Ruby. You may recall these matches. There was one on a Rampage and an opener, and then there was another one that followed Double or Nothing after the Owen final where Ruby got a win back on Britt. In the first one, Tony pinned Britt. And they were really strong matches. I remember the Rampage one especially being a big fan of that, and we were kind of blown away by it on the grin, I recall. It was one of those early grins, one of those early Rampages, like 5:30 or some shit. So there is something to this. I've been a big proponent of tag matches and, multi-woman matches in general for the TV shows. But clearly there's something to this, and I think, there's certain things Jamie does that helps Britt a lot in terms of how she bumps and the way she operates in terms of physicality, and it allows Britt to just do her things and play the hits, so to speak, as a personality and a genuine presence on the show. She's very, very popular. So I think it's really a winning combination. And while they're together, which I don't think will be for much longer, I would like to see them return to that. Now, I want to focus in on Jamie Hayter here for a moment, who was the star of the match, unquestionably. There's been a lot of hype and buzz about Jamie Hayter for a long time. It was a new height this week, and rightly so. She deserved it with her performance on Wednesday. This was her first Dynamite match in 2 months, which was the tag I just mentioned with Ruby and Tony. I don't want to quickly, before I go any further, I don't want to make this clear because this is fair. Britt was tremendous in that match. Like, genuinely, she was very good on Wednesday. I want to make it clear because I'm quick to go the other direction, so it's only for right to do that. But as far as Jamie, this is her TV exposure this year, just to give you some perspective on what she has and hasn't done on TV this particular year. She lost her first 2 matches of the year were a tag loss to Riho and Ruby was the first one. That was on the same that strange show where Ruby did a double duty after losing to Jade on the TBS premiere. You may recall this the first week. Then she didn't wrestle for 2 months in any form or fashion. C show, A show, anything in between. And then they dropped the tag match to Mercedes and Rosa, which was the go home for Evolution. We all said, "Oh my God, why did Britt lose in the go home? She's going to win on the pay per view." She did. So there's that. She then had a TV win over Mercedes, which I have to be totally transparent. I have no recollection of. Then the 2 aforementioned tags that I just mentioned, and in between there, her running the Owen, which was a win over Sky Blue and a loss to Toni Storm, as well as finally a very brief Rampage squash from a couple weeks back with Britt in tag team action. So very little there. 12 matches, as far as I can see, all year for Jamie Hayter in any form or fashion. So there could be some injuries involved because there's a couple 2-month stretches there where she didn't wrestle at all. So it may well be injuries. But 12 matches here, and we're in August. It would be really nice if all things stay as they should and she's good to go. I know she broke her nose on Battle of the Belts. But as long as she's good to go, it would be really nice to get moving here because lest we forget, I just mentioned the Riho program in January. You guys may recall they were very heavily teasing that was going to be the angle with Britt. They were doing all of the stuff with Britt and Jamie then. We're in August now. It's time to get moving, and with that in mind, I think it kind of goes without saying that, the 4-way at All Out is a huge match for the division and a huge match for those involved. I think she has a real shot. I'm pretty confident Rosa's losing the belt in the 4-way. I think Tony is probably the favourite. I think there's a chance Britt wins it back so that Jamie can then do the program with her like that. But I would be very tempted if I was the one with a pencil. I'll be very, very tempted to go in the direction of Jamie Hayter. So it will be interesting for sure. I think that match actually has got a good chance of getting over huge live. I'll be very tempted to have that in like an opening spot because it's going to be mostly moves and excitement. I think he could do very well. So there you go. Quickly on Toni Storm too. She took the fall here, but I will say if you look at if you dig into her record in AEW, and I'm not trying to do like a Tony Khan on Busted Open thing here, but it may be more her taking the fall is probably a lot less common than you may think. Genuinely, because I kind of started looking at these numbers, expecting it to be a certain way. The reason is because she's lost the 2 big matches in our mind, right? Which is important. I'm not saying it's not, but she lost to Britt and she lost to Rosa, and then this one. But when I saw this, I kind of I kind of assumed that she had lost more than that for whatever reason, but it's just because those matches, which is not a positive necessarily. I'm just saying it's worth noting. So anyway, thumbs up. Love the match. Excited for the four-way. Let's see what's in the chat. I see Cody saying Hayter should win. Pal don't have an answer. If they put the belt on Britt, people are going to give up. I definitely think in our contingent it would be a blow. I would be very frustrated by such a move, to be frank. I do think though there is like fair or unfair, it's very real like how over she is. Like I think she's a massive deal to live crowds. Again, I'm not saying that means that's a very easy crutch. So I'm not saying it makes it right. I'm just saying I don't know if it would be a blow to the division in that sense, but that's just me. All right. The other headline from Dynamite, I would say, was the big angle with the Elite. How dare you? It was the big angle with the Elite, which was Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly back on TV, and they're all back together. And of course, it was all a big swerve. Cole did a great promo, I thought, actually setting it up, and they laid the groundwork for the big turn on the Young Bucks. It's a difficult deal because I think their hands kind of been forced by so many circumstances going against this. I think there was a very different version of this that we will never see. The timelines didn't match in terms of injury recoveries. I don't know when Cole and Kyle are back. Hopefully soon, because obviously they've just set some business up here they would like to get to, I'd imagine, in the next few months. Maybe that ain't possible. We'll find out in the coming months, but we'll see. But the main deal here was Hangman making save. Got a great reaction. I was actually very relieved by the reaction because I kind of had felt that Hangman, while still over, had been kind of called off some on the TV show. And my personal expectation was Kenny Omega, and I was kind of concerned that was going to be part of the reaction. People were going to kind of be not apathetic, but they were going to kind of want Kenny, Well, live on TV, I haven't asked the confirm shoot, but it sounded like the live crowd did not even, there was not even a hint of push, but they sounded delighted to see Hangman. They loved all of this. So this was a hit. There are a lot of questions here. For example, is Hangman their actual third man? I think there's a very good chance that he's not and Kenny is, and he kind of deals with that in a way of like, I never was going to be. I was just saving you for that night. I'm with Silver and Reynolds, and that's the match all out, and that's possible. The Kenny part of this is fascinating because we've always heard for the longest time that the trios belts will happen when Kenny's back, and that's leading to a lot of us, myself included, kind of being just assuming and presumptive. Based on what we've seen on TV, it feels like Hangman's just going to team with the Bucks, which is obviously awesome. Those matches are going to be great. I just am intrigued by how Kenny fits into such a thing. It sounds like his return is imminent. So lots of moving pieces. We'll see how it all works out with the Dark Order and stuff. You got to believe the pay-per-view is under a month away. It is all out, yes. The final is all out. So you got to believe the bracket's got to be soon, right? We're under a month. So that'll be very, very interesting. Again, this is one of those deals where I have more questions than answers, which is not a criticism. I'm intrigued to let it play out. This is a fair question. If Britt is so over anyway, does she need the belt? Absolutely not. It's just, I think there's always going to be a disconnect between how you and I probably see Britt and how Tony Khan and Britt herself sees Britt Baker, I just think that's the thing. If you told me she was winning the Owen, I'd have been baffled if she won the Owen. So there you go. Anyway, the Elite stuff was a good angle, even if a little bit disjointed considering, where they were at within the whole story. But they're fans, folks. So I can't really be critical of that. Okay. Wheeler Yuta. Chris Jericho was for the main event. I thought this was actually damn good, honestly. I was kind of surprised how much I enjoyed this. Very strong TV main event. I like the kind of hook, even though I thought it lacked drama because no one really bought Yuta was going to win this match, or I didn't anyway. I do like the idea of giving stakes to matches and adding some juice. I think it is very much beneficial to the TV product to have some kind of overarching idea beyond here is a good wrestling match. And Jericho is someone who always tries on that front, which I do appreciate. He hits and misses, but he does try on that front. I thought it was an encouraging showing from both guys. Yuta, to me personally, kind of solidified himself in some ways here because, frankly, this is a much less natural matchup. style-wise than a lot of his big showings in AEW. Again, you'll know what I mean by that. Like, there are some guys he has had, standout matches with where it's like, yeah, that makes sense. He hasn't had that many because he's been mostly, paired with the Blackpool Comic Club, and that's a good thing. But yeah, it was kind of a really good sign to me that he had this match for Jericho, because I thought this one could be a bit of a styles clash. My fear was that Jericho would wrestle it as he famously wrestled AJ Styles many years ago, 6 years ago, where he kind of tried to go back to the 90s. I didn't think he did that. I actually I liked, the way they kind of matched up here. I thought they did a hell of a job on that front. So a positive sign for you and Jericho. This was a necessary sign, I thought, before Wednesday. I have no doubts that Moxley and Jericho is going to be good, but it was interesting looking at Jericho's year. This was only his 5th singles match of the year. They had previously been Eddie twice, Santana, and Ortiz. And, your mileage may vary on all of those. I think one of them is objectively great. One of them, I think, is objectively good. And the other two, you get what you get, I suppose. But always nice to just see Moxley just have a good professional wrestling match. Jericho, sorry, I think I said Moxley. A good professional wrestling match on TV before he wrestles John Moxley. Not because I don't think he can, but there's been a lot of shenanigans and multi-mans and blood and this, that. And trust me, there's going to be blood next week, but you got to believe they're going to get some time next week. There's going to be a mix, I'd imagine. So I like the Dynamite main event. Yuta and Jericho, I thought was better than I expected. Speaking of such, the dumpster match. I thought this over-delivered too. This has been a really effective angle, I think. Based on what they've done is, and we talked about this many months ago, and I'm definitely repeating myself, but you get what you get, They've basically given the people what they want, which is a chance to cheer the Acclaimed and make them baby faces, but they've done it in a fashion that's organic and totally fits who they are, and they have not changed their act, which is about as well as you can turn an act like this babyface in any setting. They've nailed it. Credit to the Gun Club for their part in that, but it has been very well booked, so that's good shit. This kind of blew me away, guys. October will mark 2 years for the Acclaimed in AEW. Now, remember, the Acclaimed are a team constructed within AEW, right? This is not like this is not like an indie team that's got. This is a Tony Khan construct. Unless I'm mistaken, but I'm pretty sure this is a Tony Khan team. He's put these two guys that he likes together. 2 years in October. I honestly was kind of stunned they were that far back into the pandemic era, as we now call it. November will be the same for Colton and Austin. I think Austin started in January of 2020, but Colton joined him in November. So that kind of amazed me, how long these two teams have been in the promotion. This was only the second straight-up tag win for the Acclaimed on TV this year. Their first was that, you may remember, in January, they beat Bear Country before wrestling Sting and Darby on Dynamite. It was kind of a weird deal. It was pretty cold. I remember not being a very big fan of it. They needed a win before they were Sting and Darby, and they got it, and they haven't won since then in a tag match. So here they were getting their second as babyfaces. I think they'll be a lot more successful in the win-loss front now as babyfaces, which is, overdue and rightly so, fair enough. Credit to the Gun Club, who genuinely have come a long way in their own right. I don't have a lot of time for them being all over the TV show. I think there are better options. So, I would like to see them kind of exist on the C shows for a bit, personally. It's just me. But they are very useful underneath heels, so I don't really have any major complaints at this point. I think they've been up to the task and they've done a good job. So shout out to the arse boys, so to speak. But a big night for both teams, I thought. I thought the match was a success, and we got over in the building. And I think there's a version of this match that I think doesn't hit the same way, frankly. I thought they should be pretty proud of their efforts. I thought they did a good job. All right. Again, there's a lot to talk about in Dynamite this week. I thought there was a lot of good. The opener, Orange Cassidy, Jay Lethal. We predicted this result. I believe it was on Fleet Week last week or on the Burt at some point. We talked about how I assumed this was to set up, the timing was so that Lethal could wrestle Wardlow and Battle of the Belts, which we will unfortunately get to the second part of that in a moment. I was surprised, though, by how clean this was. I don't know about you guys. I was a little bit... I mean, he worked the leg, which kind of gives Orange an out, but he basically won. Unless I missed some sort of detail. It seemed to me he just pinned him, which is, I assume we would get Satnam and Sonjay business here. We did not. Outside of a tag squash for Satnam on Rampage, Lethal's got 2 TV wins. This one and the other one was against Takeshita, you may recall. It was one of those early Rampages. It was a main event. It was a whole topic at the time because Takeshita was his first match. We'll get back to Takeshita and his TV record and so on and so forth. But that was a thing. This was his second one. Again, other than the Satnam deal. Orange is now 2-3 in singles matches since returning. He has won 2 multi-mans with Chuck and Trent since coming back. So, overall he's 4-3, right? They are seemingly headed to the Trios tournament, which makes a lot of sense. We'll see how far they go. I would assume they'll get to I don't want to be too much assuming because I don't know how big the bracket is, but I would guess that they'll not get to the final, but we'll get, semi-final, wherever. I don't think they'll be out in the first round is what I'm saying because, they're an act in AEW. It's always been featured. And honestly, they were very, very valuable in the pandemic era, especially. So I think they're owed that in some ways. But Orange is having an interesting run, man. When he came back, we did a segment on this show where I predicted him to be kind of integral. And I think he has been clearly to the TV. They've got a lot of content out of Orange and matches out of Orange. He's very much, he isn't really a focus, though, story-wise, as of yet. Now, that could change, but I don't know what he's going to do on All Out unless he makes the Trios finals, which I'll be very surprised, personally. Well, not very surprised, but I'll be surprised. He isn't going to be All Out, I would imagine. Now, look, that ain't necessarily that ain't dramatic or anything crazy. He wasn't on last year's All Out until the last minute when they added a big tag, you may recall. So, it ain't a big deal, but he's been an interesting run, I think, since he come back. He's been very valuable, but he hasn't been used quite as I expected, which doesn't mean it's bad. It just is, a talking point. All right, elsewhere. Powerhouse Hobbs had a squash match. Nothing much on this, but it popped me, so I wanted to mention it. I have been requesting these for a very long time. If you watch these shows for a very long time, you'll know that when Wardlow was getting one of these every week, I was very much being this drama of let's get Powerhouse Hobbs from TV squashes. We got one with Starks on Rampage, but they've been very fleeting. And his TV usage, Hobbs, has not been non-existent this year by any means. I mean, at the start of the year, they got him and Ricky going as a tag, you may recall, when they had the matches. At one point, Hobbs pinned Keith in a tag. Keith pinned Hobbs in a singles. He was on for a while there. They did, obviously, the Double or Nothing feud. My apologies. Start of the year was Revolution. They had a Double or Nothing feud was when they got him going as a tag. So, my point is he's been around. I think Powerhouse Hobbs' biggest challenge has been standing out alongside Ricky Starks, who is maybe the most magnetic personality in the whole promotion at this point. He has got a special charisma. Hobbs, I think, has got his own very special charisma and his own presence, and he has an absolute aura and has had since the first time he turned heel in AEW. It's been very apparent he has that striking edge as a villain. But I think it's been slightly challenging for him to be a headline alongside Starks. He did a great job of it in the triple threat tag that rocked it a few weeks ago on Dynamite. Remember, he had that incredible showing with a big frog splash and fucking 5 spine busters. So he's been capable of it. I ain't criticizing him. I'm just saying I think this is going to help him because he can stand alone and be his own man, talk for himself, and go out there and beat Powerhouse Hobbs as a single star. Speaking of Ricky Starks, we had a squash match here and then immediately followed it with the big hot brawl. I thought this was so well executed. This is some of the biggest kind of pros when it comes to why you would push both of these guys. They seemingly have a great instinctual read for wrestling and how it should feel and how it should look. And that's the kind of thing that I can't really explain. But if you watch the TV shows, you'll know what I mean. The way they carry themselves, the way they conduct these angles, the way they cut their promos, this was a perfect example. In other wrestlers' hands, this is just a brawl for brawl's sake. This felt alive. It felt spirited. There was some damn oomph to the thing. There was some real spite and revenge, seek for revenge in Ricky. I thought it was really, really, really good. I liked it quite a lot. Again, a tiny angle, but I just loved what they achieved. Ricky was a fiery babyface. Referee kind of distracted him for a second, and Hobbs is a killer. He only needed a second, Tremendous stuff. I think there are only 3 teams who can win the first trios titles: the Elite, House of Black, and Best Friends. If you assume House of Black is tied up with Darby, Sting, and Miro, it's either Elite or Best Friends. I definitely think that House of Black are probably going to work those 3 at the pay-per-view. That'd be my guess. Best Friends is an interesting choice. I agree with you. They are in some ways most likely next. I just don't know if they'll make the finals. I think I'm kind of bullish on the Hangman thing. Death Triangle feels like they're out of it because Pac has got his belt now, which is kind of dumb. But like, I think you guys know what I mean. It feels like they're not going to win. Pac's not going to have 2 belts while working Rev Pro, you know. So yeah, I honestly can't see past the Elite, honestly, bro. But I agree with you. Them 3 make most sense. All right, one last thing on Dynamite before we move on. Christian Cage against Matt Hardy. This one got a lot of dunks. I believe we were part of those dunks. A very funny match graphic, objectively so. It was not one that anyone had been wildly requesting on the internet. But I do think this is worth a segment, just a very brief one, because I thought this again was better than you could have expected, the same way it was a year ago. Matt Hardy, look, we all know the deal with Matt Hardy and his limitations. I get it. I understand why people aren't desperate to see him wrestle. But I don't think anyone in good faith can say that the dude isn't like trying with all his might to make these moments worth their while and give the TV show what they need from him. I honestly thought the match was good. You may disagree, that is fair, but I genuinely thought it was a pretty good match. I thought that Christian's performance bordered on great. So I may be on an island with this because I've seen no one else talk about it positively, really, other than Shoot, who was there, which owned. But I honestly thought this match was good. And as far as Christian, this was, to me, was wild. So this was Christian's first singles match since April, where he lost to Adam Cole Bay. April. He has only had 3 singles matches this year. It was Ethan Page, it was Adam Cole, and it was this one. I don't know what the deal is with Christian's schedule. I would assume, based on how much Tony Khan adores him, that he'd rather be a character on the show that wrestles than a guy who's working regularly at this point. That's my guess. I have no scoop on it because my just assumption is that there must be a reason Tony Khan isn't booking one of his favorite wrestlers in singles matches every week like I would. But it's kind of crazy how little he's worked on AEW since he lost the title match to Kenny. He's been a full character, and honestly, he doesn't need a wrestle every week to be over and be a relevant player, so I get it. But I think it's kind of interesting. 4 months between singles matches is pretty nuts, And I say that like he's had a lot of tags, but he hasn't. He had the one 10-man in LA, and then he had the one with Luchasaurus versus the Varsity Blondes, which I think he was hardly in that match. I think he was in it until he pinned them. So hopefully as a heel we get more Christian Cage matches, assuming he can. I don't want to, assume that there's like a, that Tony Khan's holding him back, brother. I would assume that there's a kind of a dynamic there where they're aware of what each other want to do. But if possible, more matches, please. I love watching this guy wrestle. There you go. People did like it. Jungle Boy feud. I think it's good for you, man. Jungle Boy was running off afterwards. It's, I don't think it's groundbreaking in content. I don't think it needs to be. I think it's a very simple dynamic that's being executed well. And when wrestling does that, it works. The match is going to be really interesting because, to me, in my mind, I think of Jungle Boy and Christian as kind of a classical matchup. And that isn't what this feud calls for. Let's see what they go with All Out. We assume All Out. Let's see if we get the kind of match that I think this feud requires, which is like a hateful, vengeful brawl, which feels unnatural for these guys to me, but we shall see. There you go. I agree with this. Look, objectively speaking, this is not the most exciting way to use your TV time. Objectively speaking, but with this show, I try to just review what is rather than what could be. Because you can kind of drive yourself crazy doing the other thing. But yeah, no, I'm not saying it was exciting. I'm just saying for what it was, I thought it was pretty good. Fair. Is Christian the most underrated performer in AEW? I think he might be, even though he's being paid like he's a top guy, but yeah, he never misses to me. I think Christian's that's his career, right? He's just perennially slept on and kind of taken for granted. He's very understated. I think Christian's a charismatic guy, but he's not a very showy personality to me. Even though as of late he's been doing the Shane Douglas MJF promos, he's still nowhere near as showy as a Chris Jericho, for example, who is very kind of, bold with his character choices. Christian is an asshole, but he's to me anyway, more understated than a Jericho, for example. So I think that's part of it. I personally, Jason, I think I think the world of him. I think he's just a great wrestler and has been for 20 years or however many of those years he was active. I don't know, he missed a long time, right? 7 years he was out. So either way, Christian's great, and yeah, he is 48. So it's fair. I just want to see him wrestle before he's done because he's just so good. But again, whatever works for him. Pop. All right. AEW Rampage. This is the show that you've been waiting on. Street Fight main event. Swerve in Our Glory. Up against the new team of Tony Nese and Josh Woods. They are going with the technical beast for Josh Woods. Tony Khan, not a fan of Josh the Goods Woods. Fucking coward. Which is a shame. But I like this team. I was a big proponent of giving Tony Nese a tag team and kind of rewarding him for his efforts in singles action. I think this is the kind of team that you can protect enough that they can be heated up for, real matches. You're not going to push them on pay-per-views and have them win the belts, but they are a very useful, mid-card tag team. And frankly, if you look at their mid-card tag teams, most of them are more character than worker. This one is very much the latter instead. So that works for me. I like that quite a lot. I will say it was noticeable to me that it seemed like both guys were actively encouraged to kind of have fun and pop themselves. There was these sort of moments of personality from both guys that I would say that I am, as someone who's watched them wrestle a lot, respectively, I am not used to. Tony Nese's selling of his own protein gimmick was incredible. Josh Woods was doing all sorts of bizarre, to the camera things. I don't know if that was an idea or they just said to them, pop yourselves. But they were trying, man. They really were. I never have any doubts about Tony Nese athletically or physically. I mean, that dude's fucking a specimen. Woods is very good in his own right. He improved a very steady pace in Ring of Honor. Unfortunately, a lot of that was for an audience of none, or one, I guess, myself. I know a lot of you didn't see Woods' kind of progression in Ring of Honor, which is very understandable because no one watched it. But it was a real thing. And, I'm glad he's landed on his feet here in AEW eventually. I will say... oh yeah, I forgot about this. I thought Ethan Prime was good. I'm very not concerned, but I would like someone to be like, hey man, just you can do those promos. This one was good. I just don't want that to become his whole shtick. Is what I guess what I'm saying. This particular example is not it because it was obviously the right way to do that promo. He was mad about stuff. It does worry me slightly that every time he talks on TV, he's screaming and he's going to have a heart attack. It's a little bit much, but give what you get, I suppose. He's joining Stokely's group. I talked about it a little bit somewhere. I don't fucking know where but thank you, Demon Grin. I think it's a good idea. I like Ethan. We talked a few weeks ago about his win-loss record. It seems clear to me if you put him with Stokely, you're going to do something different with him. He ain't going to be the world's champion, but I think you're probably going to see him a little bit more protected moving forward. Pop. All right. Smart Mark Sterling is very effective in this role. He is a tremendous fit to manage underneath heels. He gives some kind of shtick and comedy and entertainment aspects to guys who are just wrestlers underneath. It's an old school deal, and it genuinely is a lost art. I think he's done a hell of a job with this. I think it's a good thing they've moved him away from Jay Watt so he can do this stuff and just be him, which is a goof. And I mean that with love. It's a role worth playing. He's a great goof. Swerve in Our Glory, I think it's fair to say kind of needs a big program now this is done. We'll get into that in a second. Firstly, let's actually talk about this match a little bit more. I've always was a good time. It wasn't the kind of, heated blood feud tag street fight. And I want to say that not as an indictment or anything. I mean that as just a commentary because I think it should have been. This has been a very brief feud, right? Tony Nese has basically been via Smart Mark Sterling, annoying Swerve and Our Glory. And then last week, it got a little bit heated with the attack on Keith. I thought they wrestled it perfectly, where basically it was a fun plunder match with some kind of stunt-heavy business, rather than, you don't need anyone bleeding in this kind of thing, is what I'm getting at, This wasn't the time for the Bunny and Penelope versus Ty J2, is what I'm alluding to here. Instead, I thought they had the right approach tonally. I won't sit here and tell you I loved the match. I thought it was a good time. But, I like it was. I thought it was what it should be. So I liked it. I like this team very, very much. Very, very much. I really want to know why this wasn't for the belts. The rankings. Please, well, the rankings. Do we not know about the rankings? Come on now, don't have an app. Turn Twitter notifications on and read the rankings.
Pop.
Anyone hear that? Anyway, like the main event. John Moxley, Mance Warner. I'm told this has caused much discussion. Look at this. Look at this lashing out. Look at this. You see this, folks? Terrible. Terrible, terrible time. They were a brand new team. Please have some respect for the AEW rankings. They are very prestigious. Powerhouse Hobbs got in them without a singles win in 4 months once. The Butcher and the Blade came back from 6 months off and won 2 matches and were number 1. Please have more respect. Very sacred. There is a sanctioning body. There is a ranking committee. Please respect their jobs. I'll now proceed with the regularly scheduled programming. John Moxley, Mance Warner. Again, I'm told this has caused great discussion, which is hilarious if you watched it, because it was just like a good piece of wrestling TV that, really was not worth any conversation whatsoever beyond just it was good. I thought it was a good match. I thought that Mance had a little bit of a... I thought he had a decent showing. I thought it was just a little bit shaky at times. Not in like a way that was like terrible or bad or anything like that. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I don't think it was his finest hour. I've seen him look bad in this, but that ain't a problem. It was rough, but it was tough. And he fucking bled, and Moxley was bleeding on the side of his head for some reason. And it was a good time. I liked it. It was a good brawl. I thought it was exciting TV. I liked the way they edited the promo in and had it on the big screen. I will give you some anecdotal evidence to watching this with the Holbert family. They popped for Mance Warner. They did not tell me to turn the TV off, or nor did they break the remote. They simply, watched his promo and watched the wrestling show, which fucking losers. But I thought it was good. I liked it. I don't think it was, an absolute home run, but that ain't really, a big deal. It's his first match in AEW. I think it goes without saying that this is not necessarily the best indication or representation of how Mance will do in AEW. Because simply put, there is not a better guy in the promotion for him to wrestle than John Moxley. It's like the natural matchup for Mance Warner, obviously. I do believe, though, that there is a path here for him getting over in a pretty big way. Not as a world champion again, but I do think there is a chance that if you get his promos on the show regularly and you give him a kind of fun act, something that's kind of cute, maybe some sort of odd couple pairing, something bizarre, some sort of angle you can work him into, I do think there is a chance that he would get over with this audience. Now, I say all this to say I have to be totally transparent. I do not really know if this is the time for such an experiment, because not this match, let me be clear. I mean like an extended push or featuring, because their roster is loaded to the absolute, maximum. All I'm saying is if Mance does stick around, I think he's got a pretty good shot of getting over. What kind of matches he has with the normal guys in the roster that aren't John Moxley, we shall see. But I think there's a way, and, it's a matter of whether there's a will on Tony's part. So, genuinely, I was very close to just saying Danhausen's name. So, yes. I mean, anything. What if he was the guy we've been talking about? I've been saying a lot about who does Ortiz team with now. What if it's fucking Mance? What if Eddie brings Mance in, I don't know, man. Do some weird shit with him. I don't know. You're not going to push him as a singles in AEW because you have 101 guys, but it rules that I say 101 like I'm trying to be silly, and it's actually like 120. But nonetheless, happy for Mance. He's like good people. I thought he had a nice shine, a little shaky, I thought, but I thought he did good and he got some colour. And God bless him. Good for him. Hope it was a good trip to the pay window. All right. Elsewhere on Rampage, Takeshita got a win over Ryan Nemeth. I would assume that this was pre-planned and ready to go because they wanted Takeshita to have a win before he wrestled for the world's title. I am not writing off the idea that he walked through the curtain after the Claudio match and the guy said to him, before you go back, go and get yourself a TV win, and he was turned around and put back on TV. I'm not saying that happened. I am not a scoopster. I'm just saying the way this was announced popped me in a fashion that I would say that is feasible. They did that to have some fun with him before he heads back and give him a win on TV. Again, pure guesswork. I definitely think they were saying too the last match he wrestled in America, he won before he goes back, and he will be back soon. The big thing with Takeshita, and we're going to get into this more in a second, he is so good that he has already reached that like crossroads of if he's going to be around, you're going to have to push and feature him prominently. Like you've basically maxed out this version where he loses the best matches because the matches are so good that the audience like now it's just desperate to see him succeed. He's that special. So that'll be an interesting thing when he's back because I don't think it's going to be that long from what I can gather that he's away. So anyway, he beat Ryan Nemeth. And then Madison Rayne wrestled Layla Gray. I thought this was a bit puzzling, the choices around this. Listen, folks, I'm very aware of how this sounds counterproductive. And this is why I'm not a believer in the stopwatch business. I do think some wrestling matches are better being shorter. Now, the issue with the women's division is they only get one on each TV show, so I get why there's a resentment of that. I do not think Madison Rayne versus Layla Gray needs to go 8 minutes. To be more transparent, I do not think Layla Gray versus anyone needs to go 8 minutes. I'm not saying the match was terrible. Madison Rayne is a very, very solid wrestler. She held it together, I thought, pretty well. I think Layla Gray has got a ways to go. And it's not an insult. She's new. She'll get there, I'm sure. I do not know if this is the right time to have a wrestle 8 minutes in front of a live Rampage crowd, but maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. I thought it was a bit of a strange choice, to be honest with you. Like, to me, if she's going to wrestle Jade on Wednesday, do something shorter. But again, I get it. You don't want to do a short women's match because the optics. But this is why, case by case, this one I think would have benefited. But ideally, you have 2 women's matches on some shows, so it's less of it. Anyway, this is another conversation for another day. Look at this piece of shit. Why are people that aren't signed featured so damn frequently? What am I missing? I don't know, man. I don't book the show. I don't know. I think it's kind of weird. Like it's I don't really think Tony pops for like the new toy thing. Pops him. There's some parts of it I love. Like I do love the idea that anything can happen. Like Mance Warner showing up and wrestling Moxley is so like weird and wacky. It pops me. But I do also understand that like, you know, there are multiple wrestlers who just sort of sit backstage and watch the shows. Owned. I don't know. It's definitely a thing with his like, dare I say it's his, you know, attention span. And kind of being like, that'd be fun if we got this guy that I've not had wrestle here yet, wrestle. I would guess that's part of it, personally. But all right. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not saying, you know, the Kiera Hogan match would have been 4 stars, but I agree with you. It probably would have been better. I mean, I just think Layla's got a waste. And again, that's not an insult on me trying to be a dick. Like, she's new. I'm just being honest. But I think Rampage was really fun hour. I didn't think, you know, it was very quickly overshadowed by what followed the night before. But again, I think it was like a premium live Rampage. I thought it was a really fun show. Probably the weakest of their free TVs, which speaks more to the other 2 than this one, because I thought it was a really good time. If you preferred the street fight, if you liked it even more than I did, because I liked it, I didn't love it. If you loved it, you would have liked the show more. But as it was, I thought it was a good show. All right. The Battle of the Belts. This was our match of the week here in the Fleetland. Ring of Honor World's title, Claudio Castagnoli, Konosuke Takeshita. This was only Claudio's 5th match post WWE. And man, is that weird because he couldn't feel more at home, could he? Isn't that puzzling? He feels like he's just part of the show. He feels so much like an AEW guy at this point. As the Ring of Honor champ too, by the way. It's just such a weird deal the way some guys can be there for ages and then because he's been so central, he feels so prominent, you know? It's very, very interesting. I'm now intrigued by what this is about. Demon Grim, please explain. The night before. Oh, the world famous late night grin? Oh, I forget. Well, anyway, fifth match post WWE for Claudio. He has not missed yet, and this was his biggest hit by far. This is actually one of Claudio's best singles matches ever. I don't say that lightly. I'm a lot less familiar with Takeshita's catalogue, but I'm pretty confident I've seen most Claudio Castagnoli matches. I think this is one of his best singles matches ever. Anywhere, anytime. It was exactly what the belt needed after all the shenanigans with that, and exactly what his reign needed after what was a somewhat hollow, title win. I thought. I mean, he looked delighted, and I think the crowd was delighted for him, but it wasn't quite dramatic in the way that I think ideally it would have been. That will all be quickly forgotten if he has defenses as good as this one. I mean, this was an extraordinary match, one of the best matches of the year, unquestionably. Takeshita has added so much. I'm sorry, Demon Grin. I said overshadowed by the night before. I'm terrible at speaking on these podcasts. I should I should write more. Someone should pay me to write so I don't have to do this bad speaking where I say Moxley instead of Jericho and before instead of after. Piece of shit. Thank you for pointing out. I now understand the joke. It was funny. You're right. Young Heyman. I've tried to take that as a compliment. Could have been taken as an insult another day. But I appreciate you. So seriously, Takeshita's value for AEW TV in recent months: Hangman, Eddie, Moxley, and Claudio, and the Lethal match. But those last four are ridiculous. And he's lost all of them, and I totally get why that's a thing. And people are like, he should start winning. Yes, he should. But like, man, he's getting so much out of these showings. Like, this was 20 minutes. This was as good as it gets. Beautiful match. The biggest thing I liked about this match was here you have two freak athletes, two just physical specimens, and they so easily could have had a fucking meathead match where they just did all their coolest shit and popped the crowd, and it would have ruled, and everyone would have gone 4 stars on it. But they actually there was some real nuance and thought to this match. I'm going to rewatch it at some point and try and do a match review for you guys, which I understand a lot of you don't give a fuck, but it pops me, so bear with me. Like Claudio exchanging the big kind of the big explosive opening and immediately taking Takeshita to the mat because he was kind of stunned by how explosive Takeshita is and how quick he is. I thought it was such an awesome wrinkle. The mat wrestling itself was gorgeous. It's so fun to see Claudio doing that shit again because he hadn't done it for so long. And then him working the back and the way that he took so much of the match and made it compelling and allowed Takeshita to be the match's natural babyface the same way that John Moxley did. I thought it was absolutely tremendous the way they worked it. And again, I want to watch it again so I can pick up more of the kind of layers, so to speak. I was blown away by how good it was. I knew it would be good, but I didn't. To be honest with you guys, when I heard the reviews, I thought it was going to be what I described a minute ago. And that's not an insult. There's something to be said for the meathead match. Guys going out there and just doing the high spots and kicking the shit out of each other. But I loved how more traditional, conventional, classical this was. I loved that it felt like a Ring of Honor title match. What does that mean? I don't know. It means they did some mat wrestling. Chris Coleman popped huge. I don't know, man. I thought it was just a classic, beautiful world title match. Honestly, I would like to know the last world title match in Ring of Honor history that was as good as this. World title match, the singles belt. Whom had that match that was as good as this one? Because it weren't PCO's reign, and it weren't Rush's reign, and it certainly weren't Matt Taven's. What was the last Ring of Honor world title match that was this good? If the chat has any suggestions, I would love to know, because I was thinking about it, and I should have dug in and actually looked for what I think it is, but I would imagine it's been a while, because this match was fucking incredible. So there you go. Joseph, let's book the territory for a minute. Oh my God, not more rankings talk. You remember the angle at the end of Death for Dishonor? Of course, Claudio versus Dax Harwood for the Ring of Honor world title. That rules, because then you have Yuta take the fall in the tag match that they're going to do. The Champions Challenge they're going to do, the tag FTR versus Claudio and Yuta. Yeah, that's beautiful. I love it. Is he in contention for Wrestler of the Year? Yes, absolutely he is. I think he will probably suffer from the fact that idiots like myself, frankly, will wrongly frame him in their mind as a breakout star, which I don't think is really speaks to anything but a lot of our ignorance towards his work before this, because he's not some sort of new. Although it is fair in some ways, because he has, I mean, his star has grown dramatically. I just think he will suffer from those waters kind of being muddied. I think a lot of people, and again, I'm not saying I'm not guilty of this guy, I think I probably am, but a lot of us see him as like the guy who's got next, which fair or unfair takes away from his case against guys like Moxley who have been established top guys for years and years. Does that make sense? So it's like a perspective thing and kind of a mental framing thing. But in terms of his body of work, I think he's one of the wrestlers here for sure. I think him and Moxley are probably the clear front. I think Dax Harwood, I think, is there too. Dax is a really interesting candidate because he has a bunch of the best singles matches of the year for AEW, but he's also got the tag stuff. Dax is a real contender. I mean, he has the Briscoes matches, man. That's pretty crazy. But I would say Mox is the leader. I would say Dax, and then probably Takeshita is third. But I don't watch enough to speak with a great deal of confidence. That's just my personal kind of guesswork. Anyway, to put a bow on it, awesome match. Absolutely loved it. Great to see Claudio in this setting. He is as good as you'd expect and anticipate in this spot. So, tremendous. All right. I like this one too. World Women's title. Thunder Rosa and Jamie Hayter. We were just talking about this whole deal. So, I don't want to kind of repeat myself too much. Simply put, I thought this was either Rosa's best or second best title defense. I would say her best was Serena Deeb personally, but this was the first one to really run it close. I thought it was really good. Love the physicality, which is what you kind of come to expect from both women. They lay their shit in, right? And I think we talk a lot about the different kind of layers to the slightly inconsistent Thunder Rosa, but these two seem to enjoy this dynamic. They had one on Dynamite at some point. I vividly remember reviewing this. I want to say I reviewed Oracle. I don't know, but it was a hell of a time. They beat the shit out of each other, and that was the case here. Rosa gave Jamie most of this match. She was dominating most of this. First, like 2/3 of it, she took almost all of it. It was the TBS tournament. Thank you. Don't have an app. She gave most of the match, and honestly, Jamie was more than up to the task. Jamie is more compelling in back and forths because her bumping is like the best in the whole division, other than maybe Athena. So she's great. Like on the feed, she's incredible. Like she'll take fucking crossbodies and turn them into these sort of, head bumps. She's spectacular. But I will say, I was very impressed by how compelling she was in control, because that is a challenge. Like she actually was very, very engaging working on top here. I mean, like her character stuff is so slept on, I feel. Everyone talks about Jamie as like a powerhouse, and she is a powerhouse, and she's a badass and all those things. But she's like genuine entertaining. Like her team with Britt isn't just a case of she does the heavy lifting and Britt is the character. I think she's a really good heel. Like her shit talk and her mannerisms and stuff and her body language. I think she's awesome at that stuff. So on that front, I thought it was a home run. I thought she was tremendous as the heel here. And Chops is right. This is not the usual playbook for a Thunder Rosa match, right? She sold for most of it. Now, I thought it worked for the match. I'll be totally real. I don't think there are many women that can pull it off the way Jamie did, where you do kind of believable stuff that Rosa wants to sell for. But Jamie was up to it. I like the match a lot. I thought it was really good. I want to ask the chat. I want to poll you on this, as we're doing pretty good for time. This rocket. Here we go. Put in the chat what you think Jamie should be when her and Britt split. Babyface or heel. You can put an explanation with it, but let's just get a read on babyface, heel. Which should Jamie be post Britt Baker? I was always bullish on her being a heel so we could turn Britt babyface and freshen up her game. I'm increasingly feeling as though Jamie should be a babyface. Chat, where do we stand on the Jamie Hayter conversation? I'm going to try and show these on the screen for people that are going to watch on YouTube. Oh my God. We have babyface. We have a lot of babyface votes. We have one heel vote. Heel. Britt desperately needs to retire the heel. That's my issue. Yes. Jamie is a face. Heel. Face. It looks like we're leaning into babyface, but I do. This argument is very hard for me to not like. I struggle with that, It's like, I totally get this. Do you want to cheer for Britt Baker? I get that as an issue, but it's like, how do you? I mean, if Britt stays as the heel, like, how do you ever freshen her up? You know, it feels like you're a last out for Britt. Like, you give her something new, she can change the way she does something. I don't know. And the other problem is, as Dukes brings up, if you have Britt as the heel, those matches fall. The ceiling of those matches is way lower than the other way around. Because everything I just said about Jamie being engaging in control and being strong in that spot is unfortunately not the case for Dr. Britt Baker DMD. So you would be in a situation where at some point or another, Britt would be like working over Jamie. And that is challenging, I feel. I think it's a lot better to do Jamie as a powerhouse heel and Britt bumping for her. I don't know. I haven't got a good answer because I definitely understand why a lot of you leaning babyface. I've been leaning the same way in the last couple of weeks, but it's very difficult. The more you think about it, it does feel like Britt should be the babyface, but I don't know. Feels like people want to cheer Jamie in some way. It'll be interesting. One negative, I didn't think Wardlow and Jay Lethal was very effective. To me, they did the deal where they kind of did the middle ground between a squash and a competitive match. It was competitive, but they still wanted the Wardlow to win emphatically. And at some point, I think you should just pick a lane and go with that. That's my personal opinion. I think it was terrible. I just didn't think it was much. I would have opened with the women and had this in the middle because I don't think it was a particularly exciting kind of lead for the show. The post-match angle felt like it went on for a lifetime. But, you know, they continued it. I assume they want to do a powerbomb with Satnam Singh. Someone in the chat told me that was a thing earlier this week. They were seemingly correct. My guess is they'll do like a multi-man to do that. And he'll powerbomb Satnam, and that's fine. That's all fine. I didn't love the match. I thought it was pretty bland, quite frankly. See show notes before we wrap up here. Tremendous all-star trio with the women on Monday. Trios match. You should seek it out. It was an incredible lineup, little video game matchup. Seek that out on Elevation. I again would like to see more trios matches in the women's division on TV, especially Rampage. I think it could be a really fun addition to that show. Emi Sakura and Hikaru Shida was good on the Thursday dark. They had announced at 2 a.m. It didn't get like a lot. I think it probably got about 6 minutes with my rough read. Yeah, so that was good. And then they also on dark set up Pac and Kip. Pac had another title defense. Is pretty good. It's very good actually. Pac's just very like he's very much a guy who can just kind of slot in like anyone to his formula at this point to me. But it was very good. They're going to do him and Kip Sabian, which, you know, personally, if I had sat in the crowd with a like box over my head, bag, whatever the fuck it is, for every like a year, I would personally like to not be redebuted on AEW Dark, but I'm built different, you know. I mean, God bless him. He's trying his best, but what an incredible bit. The way that, like, Excalibur just explained, like, he just was like, yeah, Skip Sabian. It's fucking incredible. He's never been referred to before. I always thought there was not going to be a payoff to this. So the fact there wasn't one is awesome, bro. I have so much respect for it. Yes, this is true. The announcers totally whiffed on Emi and Shida. They didn't get any of the history. They didn't even, honestly, forget the history, which is important, but they didn't even really treat it with any kind of like prestige. It was very much like it was just some match that had been thrown on. They were talking about God only knows what on the way. Don't have an out has continued his extensive Sam Joe Wardlow propaganda. He says Joe is going to help Wardlow, not me, Samoa Joe. And then we get Wardlow Joe, not me, Samoa Joe. I've been told this is not a scoop, but I would like to say that was one in case it happens. Many group chats have decided that Samoa Joe is now wrestling Jon Moxley all out. I absolutely do not believe this to be the story or the truth. I think instead CM Punk will be back. However, if in 2 weeks Samoa Joe is the Jon Moxley opponent, I would like all of you to pretend that I said that was a scoop and that wasn't just merely the speculation of my friends in a group chat. Okay, couple last things. Next week, Quake by the Lake, Quake on the Lake, Lake Quake. Chris Jericho, John Moxley. Big match. Should do a big number. Is there a chance of an upset? Maybe. Right? Maybe. Hopefully not, but maybe. Here's for why. If CM Punk's not around and they don't want to do something as crazy as Samoa Joe, which pop, perhaps, maybe, just maybe, Chris Jericho wins here and the rubber match is a pay-per-view match. I'm going to say that I would rather that not be the case. Like, quite adamantly, would rather it not be the case. I'm simply mentioning it to get the thought out there so we can deal with the repercussions ahead of time. Coffin match. Brody King and Darby Allin. My guess for the finish of this is that Brody's going to be the first guy that beats Darby in one of these matches because I think Buddy Matthews is going to be the finish. He's been off TV. I think he's going to be in the finish here. Darby will have him beat. Buddy will do something. Then Darby will beat Buddy on TV. Then the babyfaces win the trios match too. So, something like that is my guess. Jade Cargill, Madison Rayne. Interesting choice. Hopefully it's good. And we can get back on track afterwards with Athena and Chris and all those things that were very exciting for a while and have slowly faded into the distance. Okay. Folks, this has been Fleet Week. Joe just checked the Ring of Honor title lineage. My God. And this is the best match since 2011. Best in the world. Davey beat Eddie Edwards in a 4.75 match. What rules about that is that's the match that Oracle thinks is the worst match in the history of wrestling, which makes it even funnier. But yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. It was for that. I mean, that tracks. I don't know what else it would have been, honestly. First time watching Joe since his disrespect of Jindrak hospitalized me. Good Lord, Meech, what happened? That sounds alarming. DM me, pal. This is Fleet Week. This was Fleet Week. It's over now. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you would like to see more content like this, such as The Burr, which airs every Tuesday through Friday, maybe Thursday, maybe it's Monday through Thursday. It'll be one of those things. It airs at latenightgrin.com. If you'd like to see the Late Night Grin itself every Thursday night, you can do that there too. latenightgrin.com, just $1 gets you everything you need. No tears, just grins. Many pops over there. I think anyone that's signed up and has got their seen what's over there, whether they think it's good or not, can agree it is a pretty solid bang for one's buck. So, latenightgrin.com if you're interested. In addition, a quick thing, thank you to everyone who supported the Jay Shield birthday show. A lot of people have reached out to me how much fun that show was. Thank you for those of you that supported Jay Shield and got us some birthday funds, so to speak. In fact, hold on a second, I have a super grin. I do, and I've just remembered an hour and 3 minutes in the show because I always disrespect Ben by doing this. Here we go. Ben, one of the great grinners. He has gifted so many subs as of late, and he's done so many super grins. An absolute legend of the community. He said, and I quote, watching grin number 50 on delay. There you go, latenightgrin.com, cheap plug. The look on Joe's face as he watches his co-hosts lovingly discuss Chris Masters, Mark Jindrak, Luther Reigns, and Sylvan Grenier? I forget his name. Makes me think there is a non-zero chance that the Late Night Grin has 3 different co-hosts starring this week. I don't know, man. I don't know. It'd be pretty difficult, I think a bad vibe for me right now would be if I fired my cohorts of the Late Night Grin. I thought that'd be a bad look for me on social right now, Let it sit for a couple more weeks and then we can do that. I'm just playing. Thank you, Ben, for Super Grin. If you would ever like to send a Super Grin and have it forgotten by a piece of shit like me, you can do so. Streamlabs.com/latenightgrin. We appreciate you guys. Again, latenightgrin.com. Just $1. If you've not seen LMG main event from this week, it was last night. They posted last night. Ted DiBiase and Macho Man Randy Savage. It fucking ruled. So much to enjoy. No shows tomorrow from me, folks. Gonna take the day. Gonna go see the original Jumanji in the theater for some reason. Sounds like a good time. Tuesday, news. Tuesday, The Burr, Fed Dead Redemption, and then at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Bob watches The Big Lebowski. latenightgrin.com. See you there. All right, folks, enjoy this outro. Love you.